Our New Testament reading for today comes from the book of James, a book that many think of as sort of a harsh book. Martin Luther was all for throwing James out of the Bible at the time of the Protestant Reformation. He thought it was not big enough on grace and too much on works. But I think the truth is that James' view of works and grace are not at all at odds with the works of Paul that Luther so admired. James simply emphasizes that when grace fills our lives, it changes the way we live. That faith that does not show up in our lives is not faith at all. And so let us listen today for what the Spirit would say to us through these words of James. Who is wise and understanding among you? Show by your good life that your works are done with gentleness, born of wisdom. But if you have bitter envy and selfish ambitions in your hearts, do not be boastful and false to the truth. Such wisdom does not come down from above, but is earthly, unspiritual, devilish. For where there is envy and selfish ambition, there will also be disorder and wickedness of every kind. But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle and willing to yield, full of mercy and good fruits, without a trace of partiality or hypocrisy. And a harvest of righteousness is sown in peace for those who make peace. Those conflicts and disputes among you, where do they come from? Do they not come from your cravings that are at war within you? You want something and do not have it, and so you commit murder. You covet something and cannot obtain it, so you engage in disputes and conflicts. You do not have because you do not ask. You ask and do not receive because you ask wrongly in order to spend what you get on your pleasure. Submit yourself, therefore, to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Regardless of where you stand on the health care debate that is raging in our country, whether you would prefer a full-fledged universal system like that in Canada, or whether you would prefer that the government leave that entirely to the private sector, you can't be particularly happy with the tone the debate has taken. From a South Carolina congressman yelling, "You lie," as the president addresses joint houses of Congress, to town hall meetings where people scream at their representative or senator or anyone else who tries to speak so that no one can be heard. One of those town halls on health care was eerily reminiscent of an event from last November's presidential campaign trail. Back 10 months ago, John McCain had to deal with one of his own supporters who was yelling about how Barack Obama was a Muslim who hated America. And in what I thought was one of McCain's most genuine and compelling moments, he insisted to this woman that no, he was a good, decent, patriotic American who wanted what was best for America, even if the two of them had real disagreements about how best to get there. And just a few weeks ago, McCain got to replay that event at another healthcare town hall when a different woman was screaming that Obama was an evil socialist who wanted to destroy everything that was great about America. And once more, McCain found himself in a situation of calming one of his own supporters as he told her, no, why, I might disagree mightily with how Obama wants to deal with the health care crisis in this country. He is a good and decent person who wants what's best for this country. Now, I should add that there have been town hall meetings where people behaved with great decorum, where they respected one another and listened to one another and engaged in helpful discussion and debate. But by and large, that debate, along with just about every other hot-button political issue that's out there, has gotten defined by screaming and yelling, by people on opposite sides hurling things at one another, engaging in nothing that anyone would possibly construe as civil discourse. Consider the recent uproar over Obama's address to school children, encouraging them to stay in school, work hard, accept personal responsibility, and to remember that the future of this nation depends on them. Hardly partisan stuff, and yet school systems were besieged by angry parents who were worried that Obama was going to indoctrinate their children. And some school systems decided not to show the speech, only to recant after receiving phone calls from parents who thought it ought to be played. And the Columbus Dispatch weighed in on this controversy with an editorial that was entitled Overreaction, noting that such a speech should have caused about as much controversy as the annual pardoning of the Thanksgiving turkey. The editors lamented the divisions in this country. They also noted that Democrats had lobbed partisan attacks on a speech to school children by then-President George H.W. Bush back in 1991. And as they lamented this situation, they described the state of our nation's divide with an image that I found both illuminating and deeply disturbing. They wrote, "Opposing camps cling almost like Israelis and Palestinians to grievances and stereotypes that make compromise and civil discourse impossible." Wow. Israelis and Palestinians. For where there is envy and selfish ambition, there will also be disorder and wickedness of every kind. But the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, and willing to yield, full of mercy and good fruits, without a trace of partiality or hypocrisy. And the harvest of righteousness is sown in peace for those who make peace. Those conflicts, those disputes among you, where do they come from? Do they not come from your cravings that are at war within you? Pure and peaceable, gentle, willing to yield, full of mercy and good fruits, without a trace of partiality or hypocrisy. I don't think there are many who would characterize the sort of things heard from Rush Limbaugh or Glenn Beck or Rachel Maddow or Keith Olbermann or any other number of cable news hosts and talk radio hosts as peaceable, gentle, willing to yield, full of mercy.